Meeting called to order at 7 PM. Call the roll.
Trustee Carey? Here. Trustee Haig?
Here.
Trustee Hall?
Here.
Trustee Hirschbein?
Here.
Trustee Romano?
Here.
Trustee Tarnell?
Here.
President Kubiak?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay. We have no public comments tonight, so we're going to move directly into the consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have the approval of minutes from the village board meeting of January 16th, 2024, the approval of the warrant list from February 5th, 2024, in the amount of $471,393.87. We have the approval of the warrant list from February 20th, 2024, in the amount of $329,314.93. And finally, we have the approval of the resolution authorizing pay application number 3 for wastewater treatment plant improvement projects in the amount of $616,230.09. Does anyone have any questions?
So with this wastewater treatment plant payment, do we know where we're at with what we owe the engineers as far as the time and material? Are we tracking that? Are we on pace?
Yes, we're on pace right now. There's a lot of the front end effort associated with doing shop drawing reviews and things like that, but so far, things are on pace.
Thanks. I just want to make sure that I don't want to come to the end and be like, okay, and then dispute
Yeah.
the payments.
If there's any change in that, we'll make you aware of that.
Okay, thanks.
I actually had a question. Pat, it's for you. Actually, on the warrant list from 2/5, we had the Daniel Lift Station listed twice under 2 different line items, and I wondered why for electrical. We had it listed under ComEd in the amount of $5,128.26, but then they're listed again under Constellation Energy for $535.37.
Microphone, please.
There was new billing because of the meters on the lift station and the water plant, and so Constellation, I just responded to them this morning, got dumped because they thought we closed the account. So we got a partial bill for one and a partial bill for the other, but we're putting both those back on the aggregated electricity. It's just, they did not know that the accounts were being switched over. And there's one last thing I have to do, and that's get a hold of ComEd and ask for extended payment terms, because our payment schedule doesn't, we get late charges on this. They waive all that for us because they know by the time they bill us and then it goes to the board for approval, a check sometimes is a couple of days late.
Okay, thank you, Pat. I do have another question for you on the 220 warrant list. It's for Gaz Boda and Associates. It was to rebuild water treatment 210S regulator. Is that on our old, and a regulator repair, is that on the old water treatment plant?
That's a good question. I can't tell you that right now. I'd have to do some research.
Okay, I
do some
prefer
research.
that we didn't release that check until we find out, because my question would be if it's for the new water treatment plant, why we're releasing additional funds to the
Right.
new water treatment plant. Does anybody else have any questions, concerns? If not, can I get a motion and a second?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Call the roll.
Trustee Haig?
Yes.
Trustee Carey?
Yes.
Trustee Hall?
Yes.
Trustee Hirschbein?
Yes.
Trustee Tarnell?
Yes.
Trustee Romano?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, we're going to move on to the items for separate action. Our first is item A, the consideration and approval of a resolution authorizing a 2024 recreational license agreement with Northwest Little League. Andy, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, I'll take this one away, and Pat, help me fill in anything if I forget any of the topics. But this item and then the next two items, A, B, and C of this part of the agenda relate to two separate things. First, the consideration of the board for approval of recreational license agreements or field license agreements with three different baseball and softball entities. These are entities that have utilized the fields in years past and have had agreements very close, very similar to these for the utilization of those fields. The second part of this process is discussion specifically related to the usage of Field 5. When we were collecting information from the different entities on their requested usage for the different fields, the only scheduling conflict that we ran into was the usage of Field 5. And for everyone, for some background context for everybody, the village has 7 baseball fields. There are 4 near the community center. Field 5 is near the skate park, also sometimes called the skate park field. And then there are 2 other fields up north in the Parkside area. And the only scheduling conflict was, again, Field 5, which we can discuss, and really staff is looking for direction from the board on possible modifications. The way that Field 5 schedule was drafted, it's an even split of time between the 2 interested entities, one of which is the Bison baseball / Doghouse baseball, and then the other entity being the Northwest Outlaws and Bandits baseball and softball. The Northwest Outlaws and Bandits have requested the use of an additional day, the Monday, and so staff is looking for direction from the board on how to handle that. I would say first related to the field usage agreements. Again, these agreements are based upon the language from previous years, and they lay out the general framework and obligations of the licensee. The recommendation of staff, after talking with the village council, is that these 3 items can be combined together into one motion, recommending a motion to authorize the village manager to execute these agreements and formalize some of the maintenance matters that have to be specifically dealt with for Field 5, depending on how that conversation goes. But with that, I think we can open it up to any questions that the trustees may have. President Kubiak, I think that's a good idea. We have representatives for the 3 different entities here tonight. I think maybe before the board discusses, would any of you like to come up, and if you have any thoughts or requests or information for us to consider, this would be a good time.
Excuse me, there's a switch at the top on the microphone. Push it up.
There we go, it works.
If you can just state your name and address, please.
Dan Niemeyer, my address, you said? 1437 Padre Island Lane and 757 Lancaster Drive.
Mike Rubino, 867 Bristol.
So we're with the Outlaws. We're requesting the use of the field on Monday. I think right now you guys have us on Tuesday, Thursday, alternating Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday morning. So our program, we have 4 teams trying to use this field. It's hard scheduling fields in the area. Northwest is a partner of ours. We do utilize the fields as well as they do, but they have a lot of kids in the program. We have 4 teams trying to fill in. CL5 gives us the flexibility and ability to be able to schedule when we're able to, not just what's available after Northwest schedules, and it makes it a lot easier when we have CL5 Monday which last year as well, we had CL5 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or not
No,
Wednesday,
Monday,
Monday,
Tuesday,
Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, as long as it didn't rain on Wednesday, and then Saturday and Sunday morning. So alternating Fridays is a change, and then Mondays is a change compared to last year.
So I think another one of the issues is because we assumed with the schedule, a lot of our volunteer coaches, our dads, the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday obviously helped. We want to compromise. We're not expecting the whole, week or anything like that. We're hoping to do the same schedules we had last year and even willing to give up all days on Sunday. So we were just hoping to get Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And then if they were willing to take Wednesday,
Wednesday,
Friday,
Friday.
and Sunday, we would be comfortable with that, but obviously, we don't know on their end what they want to do, so. Like I said, we're non-for-profit, just volunteers,
Volunteers.
running a baseball league, coaches, dads, like in Pingree Grove, so.
All the coaches are residents for the most part. The whole board for the Outlaws we're all residents. We all live here. Kids go to school here. Kids grow up here. That's 90% of our program for the most part, so.
And that's why we really got into this, is just try to keep competitive baseball in the area. That's in Pingree Grove. So we have some Hampshire kids and things like that, but 90% of the kids we get are from Northwest Little League. We don't have kids coming from other areas trying out for our teams. We depend on, obviously, the community and the kids in the community to play competitive baseball, maybe a different option than the Little League offers sometimes.
Yeah, we're a very small program. 5 teams total. Or 6 teams total, 1 softball, 5 baseball. We rely on fundraising for the majority of our income. Not for profit. There's not much there. We can't really go outside of the area looking for fields, as opposed to bigger organizations in the areas that are run more like a business. We're just doing this because we love baseball, our kids love baseball, and we want to see that continue in this area, so.
Pretty much it. We appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you for
Yes,
hearing
thank you.
us.
So to clarify, you guys would be willing to run your program Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and give the fields to the other organization Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday?
Yeah, if that
Correct.
worked with them, yeah.
Okay, we'll let you guys speak next and we
Thank
can
you,
talk
guys.
through
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Nick Rodriguez. I live at 784 Portsmouth Drive with Doghouse and Bison. What Doghouse is I got in a car crash, a really bad car crash, lost my full ride scholarship. I went to Hampshire, went to Hampshire Middle School. What Doghouse is a basically a camp service that I bring in a whole bunch of my college athletes, a whole bunch of college coaches that I've made connections with, run camps for kids all over Pingree, and try and bring in kids to bring light onto Pingree, because like they said, the Little League is starting to go down as of recently. I'm trying to bring that up, and it's been nothing but me trying to give everything that I have to where I grew up in the field that I played on for 10 years. So the original contract, I believe, from 2000, when was it?
So when, Octavio Rodriguez, I'm Nicholas's father. So when we moved here in 2013, I worked with Jim Mill Ray, and Brian Panfield was one of the persons that basically asked me to maybe think about starting a travel program out here. So I've coached high school baseball for 11 years. And then when my kids, Nicholas, getting to the age of playing, travel baseball, I decided to give up my coaching career at the high school and started the Northwest Vipers. That was there up until COVID. When COVID hit, PCA, which was the local facility that everybody used to use to practice and everything else like that, they closed down. So we switched it for a year or 2 years to Citius Baseball. Then obviously now I'm getting too old. I wanted him to start doing some more and stuff like that. He's been there at the field since 2013, when we basically started clearing the fields and everything else like that. Up until last year, I cut the field, the grass, the indoor, everything else like that. Trimmed it. The infield is basically probably about $10,000 worth of field prep that we use to get it ready. So right now, if you guys go there and it rains, it'll be ready to play in 2 hours. When I obviously was here, my goal was to basically get as many kids to play at the high school. They played at the high school. All the players that have played for me have played at the high school. And obviously now that he has the knowledge and everything else like that, I want to help him, because this is something that he's using, to get some money, to get his name out there, and eventually open up a facility, kind of like PCA. Us only having one field at the time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or Monday, Wednesday for sure, allows us to have a set schedule. The Friday, the alternating schedule, with us being willing, before to cut the grass and everything else like that, I thought that was a fair thing. They didn't have to do any of those things. We did all the maintenance and everything else like that for, like I said, 11 years or 12 years. And now, I'm just concerned that if it doesn't go where both teams or both entities, basically pay equally for both, because last year we cut the grass, we did everything else like that, and they only basically did the electrical. And that's, not fair. I've always been about making it fair for everybody. All the kids that we've had, we won a lot of tournaments in the name of Pingree Grove. We've gone to Disney, won a tournament in the name of Pingree Grove, brought it back, gave some awards to the old mayor, Mayor Marston, and we just want to continue that. So us having an extra day, which is something that we used to have for 11 years, is not, I don't think it's asking too much. It's fair if it's down the middle, and we're willing to work with them, but in the past, it seems like they just don't want to work with us.
And to add, I have 2 baseball teams from Bison. Out of those 2 teams, I have 12 kids combined that go to Hampshire High School, or will potentially go to Hampshire High School. So again, it's not a whole bunch of guys coming in from out of nowhere. A lot of them, I think I have 8 guys on varsity right now that go to Hampshire High School. So as a Hampshire High School baseball player or alumni, I want to grow the organization and grow the area to be known as somewhere that you can go and actually get baseball lessons or have camps going on throughout the summer.
Can you guys work with if we give you every Wednesday, Friday? So instead of alternating Fridays or rain date, you would get Friday for sure. So you'd have every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday?
Well, the reason why we wanted to do Monday, Wednesday is because Fridays, usually they have tournaments, and almost every single tournament starts on Friday, so that's why we wanted to flip it over and stuff. And if we're not using it, in the past, I've always emailed them or texted them and said, we're not using it, you can use it, or they emailed me and said, can we use it? And we're like, fine, if we're not using it. But Monday, Wednesday makes it easier for us, and then having the Friday as a rain day, or having them, that either team can use would be fine. We thought that the Saturday and Sunday, dividing up equally, if one team has a tournament and they want to hit in the morning, then the other team can do the afternoon, vice versa. But if you're only, because tournaments, basically, you might be done on Saturdays, and then you might want to have a practice on Sundays or something. Or if you get into the championship, you might want to come in and do some hitting or something else on Sunday before they actually get to the thing, wherever they're at. So having a set Monday, Wednesday makes it easier, because that way we can actually set the schedule up for the 2 teams, and then Friday can be alternating for either one.
So how old are the players that you're coaching? I know you
So
said
I
they
have-
go to high school, but
I have an 11U team, which I have 5 kids that are either at Hampshire Elementary School, Gary D. Wright, or the middle school. And then the high school, I have 7 of those guys who are from Hampshire or Pingree area that
Okay.
go to Hampshire High School.
and you're gonna have high schoolers playing on that field? I mean, I know that field's small.
It's
like a
packed.
200.
It's
pegged
set
it.
up, for the infield. That's the only thing we used to use for that, is basically ground balls.
Right, but the outfield fence is what, like 215 foot?
220.
Yeah, I mean, those kids will, at 17, you're hitting the ball, what, 300, 350 feet?
Yeah, but usually we never did like batting practice or anything else like that. If we did, it would be with the L screens in front, them hitting into the net. It was mainly for fielding.
Okay,
that we would
so you
use.
want the high schoolers just to be able to practice on that field?
Yes.
You're only using these fields for practice, right? Because you're travel ball.
So potentially what I want to do is, like I said, I have a whole bunch of Hampshire guys on my team, be able to bring those guys, the team my 11U team, not the whole entire organization. It would just be my 11U team that's attached to my name over to the field that I grew up playing on that we've taken care of for the last like 12 years.
You mean to host your own tournaments?
No, just games.
Practice.
Eventually,
Practice or
that would be
games.
the.
Or eventually with the doghouse thing that I'm trying to kickstart, maybe even have our own tournaments or something like that. But that would be years down the line after I get my name to continue to grow and do all that stuff.
So you're looking for a single one-off game
Pretty
days?
much, or like once a week, twice a week, if being able to play my league games at that field that, like I said, grew up playing at, just something sentimental to me that I've been playing at for the longest time. We've taken care of it for so long, and just putting thousands of dollars into that field and for it to get taken away or getting cut when all I'm trying to do is grow the organization that I'm trying to build from Pingree Grove.
Does anybody have any other questions for any of the speakers? If not, you guys can sit down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move into discussion. Obviously, we have a couple different options here. I'm interested to hear what everybody's thoughts are. Absolutely. Come on up.
Nikki Kinkler. I live at 1220 Clearwater Drive. I am here on behalf of Northwest Little League. Just for context, as you guys are looking at making decisions, we have about 250 athletes. 75% of those come from Pingree Grove, the rest from Hampshire. This year, we are going to be playing 11 baseball teams, 8 softball teams, and 8 t-ball teams. It's the largest our program's ever been. It's so big that we are most likely going to have to put 2 practices on some fields certain days, because based on the schedule, we've got more teams than we have fields. And we use the 4 fields at Cambridge, the 2 at Parkside, plus the 3 fields at Racco. We only use the Racco fields on weekdays because the Bison use those fields on weekends as well. But yeah, we're all, again, not-for-profit. We do all the maintenance on those, cut the grass, do the infield mix, do the weeding, all that stuff, and it's all volunteers.
You guys use the fields over in Tuscany and Hampshire too, don't you?
Yeah, that's Racco.
Okay.
It got renamed.
How many fields are there? 3,
3.
4?
3, 1 softball, 2 baseball.
Are you guys the primary league over there at Tuscany or Racco?
We're the only Little League that plays there, yeah.
Okay. And then Bison, is that for profit? Okay, like an academy?
I was under the impression when we talked about this that it was we were gonna make it for an all not-for-profit, as we were kind of donating the fields, and essentially other than maintenance. I do think we need to get a standard because there's gonna be more and more teams in this area. I mean, I know Northwest is like the main, and they've been there for the longest. So I tend to go with, if you're from Pingree, the team's from Pingree, the organization's from Pingree, I would lean towards that. You know, I do sympathize with the effort they put in as the Vipers, because I was coaching in the Little League at that point, and we kind of shared with them, but. So I think the Sunday, giving them Sundays, and especially when they're just using it mainly for practices, I think they'd be able to schedule that and make it work. I know they got other places too, as well, under that organization.
Does anyone else have any thoughts?
What's the crossover age-wise? Because the 2 travel teams don't have T-ball, right? Like, your youngest is 8U.
Our youngest is 8U.
Which, I mean, remind me, like, because they've changed everything, where, it's like you have T-ball and then you go like AA or minors. They've changed all the names.
So we run from 4 to 16.
Okay.
We started T-ball, they only play at Parkside. Those are the smallest fields of everything. And, yeah, baseball goes from 6 to 8.
So outside of T-ball, all three of your leagues cross over age-wise.
Mine is rec ball. There's like, we don't play any tournaments.
Right, it's all
outside of-
interleague, and then their travel ball and play both. Do you guys schedule tournaments here, or do you only travel to tournaments, so all of your use is practice?
All of our use is practice and league games.
Yeah.
I think I would like a little bit more understanding as to who's been maintaining the fields. Because I thought that what I had heard originally was that the Bisons or the Vipers had been, and now you just mentioned something about maintaining the field, so I'm a little bit confused as to, just the, okay.
I've maintained CL5 for 11 years.
In
Okay.
CL5 last year, they cut the grass, we maintained the infield.
Okay, okay,
It was split maintenance, it was not one side or the other.
okay. Was that the first year that it was split like that?
Two years.
Okay.
We've had CL5 for 2 years, this will be the third.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no conflict between either of yours and Northwest for field time, right? So really, it's just between Outlaws and Bison that have scheduling conflicts. Does that sound fair? Okay.
That's correct.
When was the last time you guys sat in a room and talked about what time is best for what you both want?
I don't think we have
Right now,
right now.
Okay, if it were me, I would table this and go sit in a room and talk it out and figure it out. Like, I mean, you can bring it to us, but if you haven't talked about it amongst yourselves, I'm wondering why it's at us right now to decide for you. I mean, there's a room right over there. You guys can go sit down, talk about your schedules, what both your goals are. I mean, if it's all about the baseball and the kids, have a conversation about it.
yeah, we didn't bring it to you guys, so we were emailed a form about.
It's
field use.
ultimately, we own the field, so we decide how they go and what they do. If they want to have a discussion about it and they can come to some kind of agreement, we're not against that.
I think it's advantageous instead of us trying to schedule it for them. If they can both agree on, and it works equally for what you need.
I mean, I think, yeah, kind of to President Kubiak's point, staff brought this to the board for consideration. Because I know that there has been some discussion about policy of, do we want to limit it to only non-for-profit and in different discussion regarding the maintenance. I think, to your point, Trustee Romano, we can try to facilitate that conversation between the two parties. They may not come to an agreement. It may ultimately fall back to the board, but before now in the next meeting, I can reach out to both of you and we can try to have a discussion, see if there is some common ground. If not, then ultimately it will be the village decision of how to grant the time. Would both groups be comfortable setting up a meeting with me and staff in the next couple weeks to see if we can come to some kind of agreement?
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
I mean, for the board, if I can add it, I think it's important as a taxpayer of this town, that if you're allowing out-of-town for-profit businesses to come and use the fields that the village owns, I don't know how well that sits with most residents, but if they knew that was happening.
Am I correct, though, that you guys are providing a service that you aren't in terms of age groups, that you also have like 17 and 18-year-olds, like high school kids from our community trying to get to that college level? So while from my point of view, I may be willing to give some deference to not-for-profit. I think if there's a service that's not being duplicated, I'm certainly open to considering that, because otherwise we're closing off that portion from being able to use those fields. So that's just where I'm at on that.
When you guys are not at CL5, where would you practice?
So, with my team, we were at Westfield, but again, I think there's 19 teams in the Bison organization. It would literally, and that got green lighted from the owners of Bison, that only my team would be able to use that because it's been the field that we've used for the longest time, and I wanted to bring over my team that play on the field that I was used to playing at. And just being able, the whole doghouse thing is going back to the camps, is throwing camps for Little League kids. I think I threw one and I had every single kid from Northwest come out, and there were 19 kids, and it was all from Northwest Little League, because there's not many camps with high-level coaches or guys who have played at the highest level.
All right, so it looks like we're gonna push it back to you guys, have you guys meet with Andy, try to come up with a plan that works for everybody, and then I'll get a motion to table from one of you.
Just to clarify, a motion to table the agreements with Northwest Outlaws and Bandits and Basin Baseball and Doghouse Baseball. I think I would recommend still approving the Northwest Little League.
I have a couple comments on that one, but yeah, if we can table the first two and then continue on with Northwest.
Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Somebody motion it? Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Haig?
Yes.
Trustee Romano?
Yes.
Trustee Hall?
Yes.
Trustee Carey? Yes. Trustee Tarnow?
Yes.
Trustee Hirschbein?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
One more comment on that. I mean, Andy, while you're sitting down with them, maybe you should talk to each board member and see if we can come up with a precise plan, because right now it's just kind of, to me, it's like willy-nilly, like, because it was supposed to be not-for-profit. Now we're letting a profit if they, add a service that, I want everybody to use the field that's there. I mean, if this is gonna continue to grow, teams are gonna continue to grow. At least we got a precedence, Joe, that's for you. Then we know we can say, this is why we declined you, this is why we accepted you, this, you know what I mean? So we're not doing this every year.
Yeah, certainly. I'll reach out to the board members to get some specific feedback on long-term, big-picture policy regarding the field usage as well.
Are they putting in any additional fields in the new large park up in Cambridge North? Or is that all like open field for like soccer or whatever?
It hasn't been defined yet. We haven't made any finalization as to what the layout of that park is going to be at this time.
Have we looked into the growth of all three of these leagues? Like, do we have numbers on how many players were there 2, 3, 4 years ago, and what we're expecting when we build 1,000 new homes, of how many fields they're gonna need? Northwest literally just said they're the largest they've ever been, and if we expect it to continue to grow, are we gonna have this problem year over year where we just don't have enough space, enough fields?
I'm sure that might be the case, but you also have to look at the growth around us as well. Hampshire's building 350, they pulled 350 permits this year. So I would expect that maybe they'll take on some of this as well, because we can't just have baseball fields. We also have to look at other types of recreational activities in this village. We have 0 soccer fields, and trust me, I don't want just soccer fields over there, because yeah, of course, it's easy for Horton to throw down some grass and call it a soccer field and walk away. But we also had some other ideas for that park. I don't necessarily disagree that there couldn't be a couple extra baseball diamonds over there, but we don't have anything set right now. The annexation agreement left it open at this point.
Even, I would say 2 things is, one, Andy, have we talked to Hampshire and on their plans for, if they're approving all these permits, what they'll be building as far as parks and fields usable for this? And 2, do we need full fields in there, or can it literally just be like backstops? I practice in random fields my entire life, where it's just, here's green space, as long as there's a backstop and a home plate, you don't really need the entire thing. Fielding ground balls, pop flies, pitching, all of that. So just commentary, nothing but the Hampshire thing. I would like to know if they have plans to expand that could help alleviate this as well.
From my conversations with my counterpart there, I know they are. I don't know specifics, though. I'll reach out.
Does Hampshire High School
let them use their fields?
When I was with the Vipers, we were going to start an actual feeder program to the high school. We were gonna use the fields that were at the old middle school, but we had to have 80% of the kids that were in the travel organization going to Hampshire High School. If I did that, I would have had to take so many from Northwest Little League that I would have killed the league. Rather than doing that, I basically just kept it with the kids that actually wanted to play, for the Northwest Vipers. And, because it just was not gonna be sustainable. Wouldn't be fair, people would get mad. But that was one of the things that I talked to the principal at the middle school. We went back over there and talked about all the other stuff and everything, so that was set. It's just the 80% threshold that they required us to have on the teams. So that would be basically, 9 kids on the 12 roster team in order for us to have that team play and use those fields. So that's the only way that District 300 will actually use or let you use any of those fields.
So when you were the Northwest Vipers, were you considered under the Northwest umbrella type thing, or you were your own stuff on your own?
We were a nonprofit because PCA was right there.
So you were a nonprofit?
Use all the facility time and everything else like that. Try to keep the fees and everything else like as low as possible so that as many kids as possible could play. I would say that we had a lot of kids that played at the high school. Every single kid that played for me made it to played high school baseball and were successful.
Make a motion for Northwest.
Okay, can we get a motion to approve the Northwest Little League agreement?
I have a question about it.
Of course.
Sorry. In the license agreement, point 2, it says public use. At any time, the facilities are not scheduled for use by the licensee as shown on the approved schedule. They shall be open to public use. Why are the fields locked then, if they should be available? You can walk up to Parkside and they're locked.
It's because these organizations pay to keep the fields up, and if we open them up, you get things like people bringing their dogs on those fields, and it costs a lot of money to keep the fields in condition to play, so we can't just leave them open for anybody to do anything they want on a field.
Then why do we have public use available in the actual license agreement? So is it our decision to lock them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do use them publicly for the Independence Day celebration generally, and we can choose to use them for other public, but we don't leave them unlocked because of vandalism.
Who
And
owns the locks?
we do, don't we, Pat? Yeah.
So we have the keys?
We have the keys, the police have the keys, the Little League also has the keys to access them, but it's in our master key system. One other thing I'll add, we have residents call that want to have a party or an event on a field. We hook them up with the Little League. The Little League handles everything and allows them in there. There's also typically a field open over at the fourplex, one field. It's not the field that faces the parking lot that is the short fence where the high schoolers can hit home runs out and hit the cars in the parking lot. It's the one that goes the other way that's the big field. They don't like that one. They want the one where they can hit the home runs out of the park, and that creates a problem. But there typically is a field. It may not be the field they want, but typically the Little League preps the fields in the morning because it's a volunteer for the afternoon practice or game. And when the fields have been open in the past, they've been converted into dog parks by the residents, or the kids are building a BMX ramp in there.
Yeah, I've heard we've had very destructive residents in Pingree Grove, and that's been a long-standing issue. And it's interesting that so many other communities can have baseball fields and facilities, and these things don't happen.
They happen everywhere.
Wayne Park, the bleachers were just stolen, the tops of the bleachers 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's
Stolen
fun.
for scrap. The Hampshire fields are terrible. We get there for practice and it's been raining, somebody's riding four-wheelers on the infield, and I can't have my 10-year-old girls practicing in a field with ruts because they're gonna hurt themselves. So, I think probably put a big strain on you guys to have to prep those we get there and the fields are bad, I call New Hampshire and they have to come out there and they have to direct those fields for practice, so nobody gets hurt for insurance.
I think that's the big difference between us. We have very little input into those fields. We supply the locks. There's a huge fee if they lose keys or lose the locks, they have to pay for that, but we aren't at their beck and call. They handle everything. If there's a problem, they have to fix it. Even if someone jumped the fence and did something, they still have to fix it. I don't get a call at 4 o'clock in the afternoon saying the game is starting in 10 minutes, you need to get someone over here to re-prep the field. They handle it all. And over the years, they've been very cooperative. When there's stuff that's broken, if they can't fix it, they ask me, who do we use or what do we do? And they usually take care of it. So for us, it's been an easy, because of the staff level of Public Works, an easy thing for us. Now, you guys are the board and you make the policy. You could switch any of that at any time, but I like not being in the baseball field prepping business.
Really expensive too, let me tell you. First go around as president.
All right,
Albert, I'm assuming we don't have field prep in our budget?
That would be correct.
okay. All right, do we have any other questions, concerns? If not, do we have a motion and a second? If not, I need a motion.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing a 2024 recreational license agreement with Northwest Little League.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Hirschbein?
Yes.
Trustee Carey?
Yes.
Trustee Tarno?
Yes.
Trustee Dahl?
Yes.
Trustee Romano?
Yes.
Trustee Haig?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to item D. Consideration and approval of an ordinance amending Village Code Section 7-5-1 pertaining to parking on Rhine King Road. Andy, do you want to take this one?
Yes, I will. Michael and Chris, please come on in if I forget anything. But this is an ordinance that the board tabled at last month's meeting. At the time, the ordinance did two things. First, it prohibited parking on all of Rhine King Road. The current code prohibits parking north of Damish Avenue, which is the vast majority of Rhine King, but the recommendation is to prohibit it along the entire road. The other aspect that the ordinance covered at last month's meeting was related to idling and vehicles idling generally in public streets. A question was brought up about, does this idling ban, does this apply to somebody even if they're idling in front of their own home? And while the police department would have discretion on what cases to enforce that, we do understand that it does lead to complication, especially if you kind of go down that rabbit hole of specific stipulations to carve out, what if you were picking somebody else up or waiting outside of a park or a store. And so staff kind of went back to the big picture to look at what is the goal. And I think the goal that had come up, the impetus for this whole discussion was complaints regarding truck parking and idling on Rhine King Road in particular, as it was related to the construction activities of a certain home that is actually unincorporated but on Rhine King Road. And so looking at the big picture, what we kind of got to was under the existing authority within the village code, specifically the prohibition on parking on Rhine King Road and the other major thoroughfares in the community, the police already have the authority to issue tickets and citations for vehicles that are idling or parked on Rhine King Road, also trucks or any vehicles that might be impeding traffic on those roads. And then more generally, for non-major thoroughfares, our public streets in general, there are ordinances on the books related to vehicles that cause a traffic hazard. So with that analysis in mind, our conclusion was the only recommendation we really think merits approval at this time is the full ban on Rhine King Road, and then to use the existing ordinances that we have in place if there's idling or parking or hazard issues on other public streets. Chris, Michael, did I leave anything out?
No, and I think that my firm's offer is that if this is something that's not effective, or it doesn't work, or the village's prosecutor goes to court and finds out that the judge wants us to write an idling ordinance violation rather than a parking violation, that's something for us to go back to and tweak. But when we had sort of the bigger picture discussion, I'd like to see if this works without additional legislation addressing it. If we have to write new rules to address different circumstances to make it work, we can do that. But I think the consensus was to give this a try, see how it works, and if we need to tweak it, we'll bring it back.
Chris, do you have anything to add?
The police department's in full agreement with the village attorney on this. There is ordinances already in place that we can do this. The situation where that is, where there was, where there was actually a truck on Rankin Road, that might have been just an anomaly for that time. We haven't had any complaints otherwise besides that, and would hate to keep making ordinances on things that are going to time itself out in time to come as construction even ends.
Does anyone have any questions, concerns on this ordinance or changes they'd like to see made?
It sounds like I'm not understanding, we're almost dismissing this ordinance? It's not necessary?
No, so the only part of the ordinance that's necessary is to prohibit parking on all of Ryan King. And that's how the ordinance is written right now. Last month, we had discussed possible idling language. What staff's recommendation after further consultation and review is just to implement the parking ban on all of Ryan King.
Where would that start, at Route 20?
Yes, it would be the entirety of Ryan King within our boundaries, so Route 20, pretty much.
I can also speak to, I know some of the complaints that we've had over the past couple months have been idling closer to Carolina on Ryan King Road. This would allow for the police to write tickets because if there's a truck sitting there idling, they're technically parked. So they would still be able to be ticketed. If there's no other questions or concerns, can I get a motion in a second?
I move to approve an ordinance amending Village Code Section 7-5-1, no parking on specific streets.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Charno?
Yes.
Trustee Romano?
Yes.
Trustee Hall?
Yes.
Trustee Haig?
Yes.
Trustee Carey?
Yes.
Trustee Hirschbein?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
On to item E, which is the consideration and approval of an ordinance amending Village Code Section 7-2 or -5-2 pertaining to parking on sidewalks. Andy, can you go ahead and take this hot item?
Yes, so this was another regulation that was discussed as part of last month's meeting regarding parking restrictions generally. At the time, there was a lack of consensus amongst the board about which way to go on whether to revise the policy, on whether to change the way that we enforce this policy, this ordinance. And my recommendation at the time was that staff could bring back an ordinance that would change the policy to be in line with the request of some members of the board, and then to have the entire board vote on it to provide direction to us on, do we maintain the status quo or do we change the policy? And the change in the policy would be to allow parking over or on a sidewalk overnight. With that in mind, I think I would open it up to the board members if they have any questions regarding the changes, possible changes, enforcement, anything like that.
I have a question. Is there parking like in the baseball fields on, what was it, Daniel, and the baseball fields over here? Could they park there overnight and leave their car there?
No, I don't think, That's not allowed right now, no.
Actually considered a municipal parking lot. There's only a 4-hour parking limit and not at night.
Figured that some of those people that got 3 cars or that can go put them there and the morning they walk over there and get in their car and go to work. But
My preference regarding this is keep the ordinance as written, so no necessary changes.
Agreed.
I would agree too. I think one of the important things that we talked about last time was that people aren't going to remember to get up early enough to move their cars. And then we're going to have kids walking in the street to try to get to their bus stop. So, I mean, I just think it's a safety issue and people aren't going to remember to get up at 6 a.m. every morning and move their car. So I would leave it the way it is too.
Well, that would be kind of assuming guilt on people. I know there's a few people on my street that do it, and they're gone by 4:30 in the morning. So I just think I kind of think it's ridiculous even having to talk about this. I don't even think there should ever be a ticket written at 3 in the morning for somebody sleeping in their house, not causing any problems. But we're here now. This is, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no liability if somebody walks around a car and gets hit by a car on the village if we change this code because it's a state law. I know that was brought up.
Correct, so I think what you were alluding to is the village is protected to a large extent by the Illinois Tort Immunity Act. So the village isn't going to be liable by virtue of legislation that it adopts relative to road or safety issues. It's a discretionary policy, and in that light, that is immune.
Okay, because for me, I mean, we've been through these annexation agreements with D.R. Horton, and every time that a board has approved it, they've approved a smaller road, which limits the parking on the street. When this community started, it was very young families, young kids. Those kids are now 16, 17, 18 years old. They have friends. To me, it's safer for them to be parked over the sidewalk in the middle of the night rather than on the street. So somebody coming across the street, if a car is parked in the dark, they're more likely to get hit by a car that way rather than the car being able to see them come around, in my opinion. Like I said, I don't even know that this should be enforced, but if we got to make the ordinance, then that's fine. I would approve it. That's where I stand.
I've gotten probably more emails on the parking over the sidewalk in the last month than anything I've gotten since I've sat in this seat. And it's been both. It's been people that are angry because others are parking across the sidewalk and not getting ticketed. Then I've got other people who think that they should have the ability to park over the sidewalk. I would say the emails that I've gotten are 50-50, so I can't give you a clear indication of what residents truly want because I've gotten both emails. One of the emails I got actually this morning, and I know Chris got it and Andy got it as well, was a gentleman that's upset because we're allowing people to park over the sidewalk and we're ticketing people in the street but not over the sidewalk, which is not the case, but it's putting our police officers in a tough position because, like Chris and I talked about, if they're out and there's people parked illegally in the street and they're giving those tickets, then they also are being asked, well, why aren't you ticketing everybody that's parked over the sidewalk? My concern becomes we have bigger things that are going on overnight that the police need to be enforcing than Sally who parked over the sidewalk because her kids are home from college right now and they've got 4 cars in the driveway. That's where I guess I'm a little concerned. I feel like it is difficult because I look at residents who have, moved in with 3 small kids that now have 3 kids who are driving. So they have 5 cars and they don't have enough places to park them. We have not a lot of public parking that would allow for people to park overnight in this village. You cannot park in the street unless you're authorized by the police for, what is it, Chris, 3 days in a row?
3 days in a row or up to 5 times a month.
And it's like, where do you go and what do you do? So I sympathize with people that are in that situation, but I also sympathize with the second grader who is trying to walk to school in winter and can't get around the damn car that didn't move before 6 a.m. So I'm kind of in I don't know what you guys want to do. It seems like we're split 50-50. If I had to make the call and it came down to me, here's how I would vote, and I'll explain why. I would say we change the ordinance. We allow people to park overnight 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. If your car's not moved, you're getting a ticket. If it doesn't work, then we come back in 6 months, we regroup, and we look at a different option. But that's how I see it right now, because like you alluded to, the streets aren't wide enough for people to be parking, and that's how I see the best option right now. I spoke with a lady who, her family only has one car. They have to walk everywhere every day because her husband takes the car to work. If people are parked in the sidewalk, it makes it challenging for her with a stroller trying to get around. But she even agreed that if people could be off the sidewalks in the morning, she's okay with that option. So I don't know, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say, because I do feel like this is kind of it's a challenging situation.
I'll just bring up, last meeting, we spoke about this, and Chief brought up examples of overnight parking where cars were left after that time frame, and they're complaining it's 30 minutes after. So this will turn into that same thing. If we set a time, then it's gonna be, well, it was only 6:15, it was only 6:30. So,
I agree with you. It will be that, but the ordinance says 6 a.m. And if your car's there at 6:01, then you're getting a ticket. Because we're already changing the ordinance to adjust to make things easier for you. So if you can't have the courtesy to move your car by that time frame, then you get a ticket.
I'm all for that. It's 6:01, you guys want to write 700 tickets, get them the hell off the sidewalk, you know, but to me, you need to ease the burden a little bit in the parking at night. Just, I don't think that's the way the state law was intended. I mean, obviously, it's for people walking on the sidewalks. Yes, there could be somebody walking at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, but at that point, it's very few and far between. Now, if we want to go enforce it for a couple weeks to make sure people know, you know, we got extra, I'm sure, patrol officers at 6, 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, go out there, write them up, that they'll move. I mean, what is it? Is it a $40 ticket? Am I right?
Yes, it's a $40 ticket, but please know that's not the idea of the police department to go out and just ticket everyone just for nothing.
Well, no, it's not for nothing. They'd be breaking the ordinance. I'm just saying, in general, I know you guys don't do that. I'm just, if it becomes the complaining, I guess my point is, if they're complaining at 8 in the morning, not 3 in the morning, I'm guessing. You know, I'm not sure you guys aren't getting a lot of calls at 2, 3 in the morning about.
The email that came through this morning was at 4:43 a.m.
Okay, well, tell them tough.
Who
you know.
sets the dollar value on the ticket?
It's stipulated in the village code, so the board can change it.
The only way I would agree to this is if it's like quadrupled. $40 is nothing to someone who's not gonna move their car. If you want to change it, you have to make it hurt, and I want extra patrols for the first month that this is done, and I want everyone ticketed. Move your car. Like, we should be prioritizing kids and people with kids right now. 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds, they know how to think, maybe not very well, but they know how to think a lot better than a 6-year-old on his tricycle. They got a little too far away from his mom. The moms that have to walk, all of that, like, they should be our priority.
Chris, the human brain doesn't fully develop until 25. Further, I am a person that walks every day. Anybody that lives by me, Adam walks every day. I walk 2 miles every morning. I try to make it around to different areas in the village. There are people that park over the sidewalks all the time. I get what you're saying, but I'm trying to come up with some kind of compromise. I'm not opposed to your idea of raising the ordinance. Michael, can we raise the amount of the ordinance just for parking over the sidewalks, or does it have to be overall?
No, I'm sure that we could precisely carve out an increased fine for a situation like this. The only thing is that would have to be on a separate agenda. That's not before us tonight. With the Open Meetings Act, it does have to be on the agenda. And so I think that let's provide input to staff as to what you would like to see the fine be. 2, it would not take effect until 10 days after it's adopted and published. but I'm sure that we could work out some precise language to address this issue specifically if the board wishes.
Chief, I have a question for you. If one of your officers did need to write a ticket, could you explain the process? Is it just writing a ticket, or are they running the plates at that time? I just want to know how much time is being taken off the street by that officer writing a ticket.
So the process is with any parking violation, what we do is we run the registration of the vehicle through the LEAD system, which is for the law enforcement data system. We get the information with the ticket so we can put it on the ticket so we know who it actually is the registered owner. At that time, we write a hard copy ticket and we take it and we rip off the back portion, which has an envelope attached to it so someone can put a fine in and mail it or drop it off. A parking ticket could take maybe 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how it is.
I would suggest if we do pass this, wait a month or two, see how many tickets we're actually writing before we worry about what kind of fine we're gonna put on them after that. You know, if we're writing 2 tickets a month, 5 tickets a month, it's not a big deal. But if we're getting 100 a month, then we gotta look at something.
I don't know, because my thought process is maybe it's only 5 tickets a month, but it's 5 tickets a month to the same person over and over. And if they're not adjusting to what we're saying, then, you know, you're not following what we're asking. We're trying to compromise here, trying to make a compromise. So maybe that ticket becomes more expensive and they'll think twice about doing that.
Yeah, we could do something like that. Your first one is 40, your second one's 60, and so on and so on.
Yeah, progressive.
I think if we could be not whimsical, but give it a shot, and if it doesn't work or there's a lot of upheaval, pull it back. But like Amber said, as a walker, I know neighbors that do. This is a compromise, and this is something that I think would be a good first step. I think a lot of people could learn to park parallel on their aprons. There's other options for them, you know, but this is a good first step. And again, we can reel it back if there's a lot of upheaval about it.
You know, in Carillon, we have very short driveways. It's hard, even some cars cannot clear the sidewalk. I went into the new section, Cambridge North, they're shorter than ours, some of them. So they're really gonna have a problem over there. The police will spend all night there writing tickets.
So yes, the answer is we could make this progressive, but it seems like we're going to have a wait-and-see approach for 4 weeks' time to see how this goes before we take up this issue again. Is that correct?
Chris, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, the police department will do whatever the board says.
Good.
All right.
I move to approve an ordinance amending Village Code Section 7-5-2 restrictions on parking.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Hall?
Yes.
Trustee Hirschbein?
No.
Trustee Haig?
Yes.
Trustee Tarnow?
Yes.
Trustee Romano?
No.
Trustee Carey?
No, no.
Split vote.
Yep, I'll go ahead and say
President Kupiec?
yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next item F, consideration and approval of a resolution approving professional services agreement with Fair Graham for Phase 1 engineering for a multi-use path along Route 72. Seth, do you want to take this one?
As long as Andy's good with that.
I'll defer to you.
Okay, so in front of the board tonight, we've got an agreement for consideration for the PE1 engineering associated with the multi-use path extension project. This is the same project that the village applied for ITEP funding for in 2022. Based on the scoring, Andy and I had a meeting with IDOT, and it was very close to, the village was close to being selected. We talked to them about maybe some different ways, different things that the village could do to make their application more competitive as the village considers submitting an application again this fall. One of those things is to complete or be under contract for the PE1 engineering. That will give some more points to the village in that grant consideration process. So this is we've got the agreement here to push that forward. This pathway, if you guys may or may not remember, this is between Rhine King Road and the commercial district, Thurnau Road, on the opposite side of 47. So this would be on the south side of Route 72 is where this path would be planned.
Seth, really quickly, just so everybody has all of the context, can you briefly go over the differences between PE1 or Phase 1 engineering, Phase 2, and Phase 3?
Yeah, so the PE1 is basically the initial preliminary engineering process where you do your initial survey work, your public engagement portions of the work, identifying initial geometrics, going through initial environmental approvals and submissions to IDOT for sign off on IDSs, things like that. PE2 is where you actually move your way into the bid set plans, where you're providing those plans to contractors and they are pulling quantities based on unit prices and pay items. So that's what PE2 generates, those construction plans essentially. PE3 is the construction engineering, where you're verifying the materials are installed correctly and quantified appropriately for contractual purposes.
And I'll note also that IDOT and other grant awarding agencies, they very much like to see at least PE1 done by the applying agency. It demonstrates a higher level of commitment from the local agency, as well as the fact that it makes the project closer to being shovel-ready. And so that's kind of the reasoning behind why it would increase our score.
I had a question on this, Seth. So I was reviewing this and I apologize. I was looking at it Saturday morning and meant to call you and forgot about this. But when I'm looking at this, in my mind, when I thought we were doing this, it meant we were going to connect the entire village via this multi-use path. So I had a couple questions. One of them being, Caroline, will we improve the crossing at 72 and Rhine King so Caroline residents are able to get on this path and make their way to the Thurnau Road Commercial District?
So currently at the intersection of Rhine King Road and 72, there is a multi-use path crossing.
Okay, and that's as good as it gets?
That is planned to remain as is, right, as approved by IDOT. And then, what it would do is it would provide a connection on the south side of 72 between Rhine King and RJB. And there's another path crossing at Richard J. Brown, sorry for the acronyms, but there's another pathway crossing from the north side of 72 at Richard J. Brown as well.
I've used that myself. My other question to you is, I looked through these maps, and one of the other areas that was a concern for us when we were thinking about this path was Route 47, along Route 47, for the people coming from the no-name townhomes and Sunset Cove. How do they safely get to like Kelly's Market or to the mobile and the whole Starks Corner up there? Right now, we don't have anything, and I can tell you a couple times now I've been coming down 72 or 20 or whatever the hell it is and turning onto 47, and there's people riding their bikes right along 47, and I'm thinking, oh my God, is there anything we can do there to improve that so that we have a safe way for them to get to that area? Because they're going, it's just not safe.
Yeah, certainly could. That's currently not included as part of the scope, obviously, for this project. This project is just considering the pathway along 72 between Rhine King and Thurnau. So that's really the extent of it. If you wanted to consider something like that, obviously at that point you'd be probably considering either a below grade crossing of the railroad or an above grade crossing, likely an above grade crossing, which would be a significant structure to, get across there. So that would be no small feat. Not saying it can't be done. Anything can be done. It's just a matter of what's feasible.
You're talking about like a walkway bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
like
that'd be a-
millions, like 4 or
Yeah.
5, maybe 10 million.
So there's no way to like connect Thurnow to Thurnow, I guess,
You'd be crossing the railroad.
the railroad tracks?
Yeah, so it'd be either below or above, one of the two, and something tells me it'd probably be above and very significant in cost. I wouldn't even throw a number out to you on what that may be, just because of the height that you would have to clear above the tracks.
Does anyone have
But
any
to be
other-
clear, that none of that scope is considered as part of this proposal. This is strictly from Ryan King to Thurnow. And one thing that I did want to point out is that in our proposal language, one of the things that we want to kind of head off at the very front end of this PE1 is the intersection of Illinois Route 47 and 72. We are not 100% sure until we engage further with IDOT as part of the intersection design review, whether or not they will allow an at-grade pedestrian crossing at that intersection due to the traffic volumes. That's something that will be determined as part of the PE1 efforts. If they don't, that is something that we will bring back to you guys for discussion before we continue to push forward with the PE1 efforts. So that's something that we'll be fleshing out in that process. So I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page with that. Yeah, I think that's really it.
Seth, do you have enough experience with things like this where, in my opinion, that road is dangerous enough for cars? Have you seen other neighborhoods that have been rejected, with similar types of intersections? To me, again, it just seems hellacious to send people back and forth on that road.
I really don't have too much concern from my experience. I've seen plenty of multi-use path crossings, especially like at roadways at like Route 72 and Ryan King Road, Richard J. Brown, Wester. 47 and 72 may be a challenge just because of the high traffic volumes. But again, I don't know for sure until we actually look further at the, signal phasing, the amount of the actual traffic numbers, that kind of stuff. That intersection, I can't tell you for sure that it would be fine.
How many feet off of Higgins would the path be?
That would be part of the PE1 design. There are clearances based on the speed limits. I would assume it'll be at least 10 feet off, at least.
And what's the difference between the civil engineering design and the intersection design?
Are you looking at the proposal right now? Okay, so this intersection design is related to the actual geometrics for the intersection. So as part of, whenever you cross a signalized intersection, IDOT requires what's called an intersection design study. And basically what that is it's an analysis of the traffic counts and then a look at the geometrics to make sure that it meets their design parameters and safety requirements within their design manuals. So as part of this scope of work, we'll have to do an intersection design study at Wester in Route 40 or Route 72, Richard J. Brown, and Illinois 47. So there'll be 3 separate intersection design studies done for each of those. And then the civil engineering is just the engineering associated with design of the pathway. We're just connecting into the existing pathway at that point, so there's really no intersection design study that is anticipated at this time. If IDOT were for some reason to come back to us and tell us we did, obviously that's not included in our scope, but it's not expected to be included in the scope of work.
Do you have any more questions? Anyone else, any other questions? Can I get a motion and a second?
I move to approve a resolution for a professional service agreement with Fairgram and Associates for Phase One engineering for a multi-use path along Route 72.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Carey?
Yes.
Trustee Hall?
Yes.
Trustee Haig?
Yes.
Trustee Romano?
Yes.
Trustee Hirschbein?
Yes.
Trustee Charno?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
All right, item G is the consideration and approval of a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Fairgram for Phase 2 engineering for the Ranking Road Damish Road Roundabout Improvement Project. Andy or Seth, one of you?
Seth, I'll let you take it.
All right. So I think everybody here is aware of the roundabout project that is being advanced in the Heritage District at the intersection of Rhine King and Damish. What we're looking to do with that project is leverage the STP funds that were provided or allocated to the village from the Kane-Kendall Council of Mayors. So essentially, there is funding in fiscal year 2026 that is applied to this project on the construction side of things. So that's a very good thing. But at this point, the PE1 is currently under review by IDOT. And so the next phase of this is the PE2, which, as I kind of mentioned to you guys already, is where we move our way into the creation of the construction plans for bidding purposes and construction purposes. So this is just that next phase. As part of this phase, we will initiate the land acquisition process for any property that may need to be acquired in order to construct the project. Do you have something, Luke?
Well, I guess I was just gonna ask about the land acquisition. I don't know who this goes to, but, so if the property owner fights back, is there a chance that could technically delay the project? Or is we just say, no, we're taking it?
Well, it would delay in that we'd have to go through negotiations. If we had to, we could go through eminent domain.
Okay. Is that something that would take years, months, or?
I think Michael
to be
could probably
determined?
speak to that a little better than me.
It can take dog years. Based on my experience with the City of Woodstock roundabout, where circumstances arise. One landowner's attorney died in the middle of the negotiations. That took a while to get going. Another property had potential environmental issues. And then two, because the family members were too hesitant to accept title to it, title was vested with the two dead grandparents that had been passed away for decades. So the warning is that to avoid that situation, if we feel like something is going to head toward eminent domain, that they be brought before us. And then two, for the village to consider, and it's a sensitive political issue, but if we have to expedite acquisition of properties, to consider specific quick take legislation like IDOT has. IDOT has the ability to acquire title and then fight about the compensation afterward. And that is a process by itself. So if there's any hint that there's going to be a potential delay, we ought to be addressing it, seeing what we can do. And my approach would be to try to, within reason, try to work out with that landowner, even if the village may have to pay additional compensation above and beyond an appraisal to try to get it done without resorting to litigation.
The other component of the PE2 would be the coordination with the railroad for improvements for the pedestrian crossing. So this is where we actually start to engage with the railroad to get approval of the design. Obviously, I know that there's an agreement that was made was it maybe a year and a half ago now with CP where they allocated some money to the village that will, however the village chooses to use that, but that was the intent was to offset some of the costs associated with that pedestrian crossing. And also, we're hopeful that that agreement makes the process easier with CP in order to actually secure that crossing, because in the typically, it is a challenge to get them to approve of any sort of pedestrian crossing.
I believe in that agreement, they already gave us the approval for that crossing.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be using that.
So is that something you reach out to the railroad, or is?
Correct.
Okay, so that'll be after we approve this and you guys talk to them, make sure that.
Yep.
They're not changing their mind or.
Yeah, and if they do change their mind, then we'll call you, Luke.
I'll need Michael.
Yeah. Trustee Hall, I'll also mention, so as part of this, they'll be identifying the specific amount of land that has to be acquired, and they'll help the village with the coordination of that, but the actual responsibility to deal with the homeowners will be the village. Typically, I think that's typically done, it's, a lot of times homeowners are more likely to respond if the village is calling as opposed to a consultant. So just some background on that aspect of it.
We're more than happy to, support that, though. We've gone through this process on many different projects to help secure easements, right-of-way, temporary construction easements, those types of things, so we know how to have those conversations, but having the village leading those is a good thing.
Does anyone have any other questions or concerns? If not, can I get a motion in a second?
I move to approve a resolution to enter into a professional service agreement with Fair Graham and Associates for the Ranking and Damish Road Roundabout Improvements Phase 2 Engineering.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Hirschbein?
Yes.
Trustee Hall?
Yes.
Trustee Haig?
Yes.
Trustee Carey?
Yes.
Trustee Tarno?
Yes.
Trustee Romano?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move right into staff reports. So Andy, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, I briefly wanted to touch on our first or our upcoming non-home rule sales tax town hall. The first one is scheduled at Carillon at 6:30 a week from tomorrow. And President Kubiak and I have been discussing kind of how we want to format it and kind of wanted to share our thinking with the group. What we're thinking right now is to really kind of start it off with a presentation from us, just kind of outlining what the non-home rule sales tax is, why the village is proposing it, and then to go into some specifics about what items it covers and it does not cover, and then really to open it up to questions that the community has, either whether it's a technical question that perhaps I can answer, or if it's more of a question on the thinking of the board members or President Kubiak specifically, then involvement from the rest of the group could come in there. Does that sound like a good general plan for the group? Does anyone have any suggestions on how we should format it?
So are you saying like, basically you give the info and you and President Kubiak answer the questions unless it's specifically asked to a board member per se?
Then we would take the primary lead, but I think, of course, if board members have something that they want to share, or if a question's asked specifically to a board member, then they could.
Well, I like the idea of it being precise, to the point, don't convolute it with a bunch of different opinions. Everybody's kind of on the same page. They may present it differently, just you, President, and like they say, okay, Trustee Haig, we got a question for you, then he can answer, but, something like that in general. I mean, if somebody's got a little bit to add or whatever, but I don't want to go around the table for every question,
Yeah, is everyone comfortable with that general scheme?
That's fine. Are you gonna have access to a projector to put that data or the information on?
I don't know. At Carillon, we might, but what we'll do, and I'll coordinate this with everyone here, but we'll have the sheet information that we can share with people. So at the very least, everyone will have a handout.
Carillon's got a 80-inch TV screen, and you can hook your computer or PC to it, anything, a laptop, and print it up on there.
Yeah, I think at the Carillon one, we'll be able to do that. I'm not so sure about the Gather. But well, the handout will be there, and yeah, I think overall, to respect people's time, we'll try to keep it pretty concise and to the point, and just answer any questions people might have. But certainly at the Carillon, we can utilize that technology.
Did we get a date for the gather?
It is the week after, so
Week after.
March 6th.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Next one's on the 28th, right?
Yep. Yep, the 28th at 6:30 and March 6th at 6:30 at the gather.
Do you have anything else?
Nothing else to report right now.
Okay. Chief, do you have anything for us tonight?
No report.
Okay. Albert?
No, I do not.
Okay. Pat, I know you do. So what have you got for us?
A couple of things. Last week, when we went to use the pressure washer, it sounded like there was a brick turning around in the pump. Got sent in. It's a pretty expensive repair. It might be time to start looking at new units. I got pricing, $7,000 to $8,000 for a new unit. The pressure washer is what we clean the trucks with, all the equipment, pumps. We use hot water in that, so we generate our own steam. It's oil-fired to help get the grease off of stuff. Right now, we have nothing to wash everything, but everything's clean, so I'm okay. If there's direction from the board that I should bring this back to the board, I will. If you want me to just fix the old one, which is over 10 years old, I can do that too, but they just said it's lived a good life. We might not want to consider putting more money into it.
And how much is the repair, or do you have a general?
Just a little over two grand.
$2,000 for a repair, and would you say 8 or 9, 7 or 8 for a new one?
Yeah, for a new one, yeah.
So that's not like a Die Hard or a Kenmore. What kind of pressure washer is that for 7,000 to
This is
8,000?
a Landa or a Barracuda, and they're, again, 230 volt, 4,500 PSI. We can generate steam with the gas fire, or the oil-fired burner.
So was that new with this building, or?
No, we've had it for
Had it?
several years.
Okay.
It may have lasted longer if we weren't on well at the Elgin location. The water was extremely hard there, but we had cartridges to help soften and prevent scale buildup. But he feels that even if we do this repair, that in the next year, we're probably going to be replacing the burner.
So this is something we use to clean all of our trucks?
Yeah, all of our
Which
trucks.
ultimately extends the life of our trucks.
Trucks,
correct?
yes, yes.
Yeah, I would say unless anybody has a problem, go ahead and put it on our next agenda then.
Sure, I'll work on that. We've been running doing soft startups and running and adjusting the water treatment plant 2. We're close. I wish I could say things were faster, but a lot of times it takes a while to get an answer if something isn't working quite right, or figure out a reason why we can't get a result. We did have a flow meter fail on one of the vessels, and they put a temporary meter in and sent the other meter in for repair. That took some time, so everything isn't just, it's not like making an adjustment or turning a switch on, it's actually trying to get information. The latest round was the new chemical dosing pumps. You can link up to your phone, which makes them a lot easier to adjust. So one guy was adjusting them, another guy would walk in and it would link up to his phone and revert to the old settings. So I said, turn that off after we get it adjusted, so it wasn't reverting back, because we couldn't figure out why they would revert back to previous settings. But the plant is close. I'd like to say it would be done tomorrow. I'm not sure we're going to be quite there. I'm thinking sometime maybe next week. Their program is half written for auto alternation on the new SCADA, and we're going to integrate that into the existing plant, which is an old SCADA. We had a meeting this morning to discuss that portion. We're moving along, albeit slow. But slow and steady is better than fast and wrong. So, but I wish it was faster. Wastewater treatment plant, if you haven't heard it, they're starting to drive the piles in today, and yesterday, I believe, but I wasn't in town yesterday. I saw them being delivered when I came up to let people in at the water plant yesterday. Other than that, that is where they've lost ground, they've made up the ground, and it seems to be on schedule. And the concrete work, I'm pretty happy to see that progressing. So there's one structure done and another structure moving along at a good pace. And I think a third structure, the bottom of one of the tanks, they're starting the concrete in that, so.
I'll plan to go out on Thursday to take a look at the wastewater treatment plant.
Does anybody have any questions of me?
So when you say you're, for the water plant, and you're waiting on answers, who's asking the questions? Is it you?
It's me or the vendors there as we're making adjustments. So if I don't like the way something works, I want to know how it works, because I have to run the plant.
Right.
And it's supposed to run in auto mode, but, so running a plant isn't like turning a switch on, but once the plant gets going and we have everything dialed in, you can walk away and it'll send you an alarm and shut the plant down if it's not running. But getting it to that point is sometimes difficult. So the flow meter on the softener, what was happening is we had flow go through it, but it wasn't being counted. It was reading 0. And so I was over softening the water. And so we had to stop. I'm like, I'm not putting any more water out, even though it's nice and soft and people like soft water. I want to maintain the same hardness as we have down here, because our whole chemical treatment is based on a certain hardness. So we had to wait a week and a half for the flow meter to come, a different flow meter to come in so they could take the one out. Now, I could run the plant on 2 softeners with one out of service. My question was, what happens when one of the 2 goes into regen? I've got one group saying you can do it, and I've got another group saying you can't. And until I have a definitive answer, or we got to neck the speed down and there's no programming in that, I won't do that. And we paid for 3 softeners, just get it fixed. But it all takes time. They're not going to send a flow meter back and get fixed in one day in this particular climate. I wish I could say they could do that, but it just isn't what's happening.
Pat, where are we at with the fence? Is that completed?
They cemented the posts in today, the new longer posts. The posts were put in not to the correct grade. And so when they went to set the fence, they weren't tall enough. So they had to pull the front row of posts out and put taller posts in instead of welding extensions on the posts.
Because my thought process is the plant cannot be substantially complete.
It won't be tomorrow.
100%.
Yeah, we need the fence in.
Secure,
Yep,
correct?
right.
Because that's our fresh water for this village.
Yeah, and it needs to
unless
have
it's locked,
a secure gate on it. The operator for the gate, the sliding gate came today, but it's not installed, but it showed up in the afternoon, so
And
they'll be back tomorrow.
So I'm correct in saying that won't be done by 5 o'clock tomorrow.
No. So, I believe I'll be back there tomorrow doing another soft startup. We made some adjustments today, but it was near the end of the day. And we'll see, we had questions. We want to see if the adjustments work to get some consistent dosages of chlorine. So we're plugging along. It takes time. And the meters that read there don't read every second. They read in 2.5-minute increments, so you have to wait, then make an adjustment. And a lot of times we verify, was that reading correct? So we're plugging along, just not at the speed I'd like to see. Personally, I would have liked to have seen it done in June, but that's just not where we're at.
That makes 2 of us.
Next June.
Okay, all right. Seth, what do you have for us?
I guess what I would just add to the discussion on the water treatment plant is that we have submitted a letter basically to the contractor, just kind of documenting what the village agrees with from a delay standpoint and what they do not agree with from a delay standpoint, as far as, what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. So we worked through that, and sent it to Andy and Amber for consideration before we provided it to the village to make sure everybody was aligned on that. So that's in their hands. As far as an update on the waste plant, as was previously mentioned, the piles are being driven right now. That's probably going to continue for the next month. And they're pouring the internal walls for the lift station on the new filter building, which is structure number 55 right now. The fence along the southern boundary has been installed, as well as the retaining wall with concrete cap. So that's good news as far as securing that site from a construction standpoint. And we're following up currently with the IEPA as far as where they stand in approving the change order for the elimination of the Vector truck. They just have not processed it yet. It's not a matter of whether or not they won't or will. It's just sometimes they need to be prodded along. So we're following up with them on that, so that on future pay applications that can be removed, shown as removed at the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for, Pat said they had to pull apart and send it out for repair. Aren't we getting new parts in here? Now they're gonna come back with a repaired part. Why don't they just put another new one in there?
That's the plan. When it's being sent out, and well, I guess they will repair. It's being covered as far as a warranty. It will be brand new. It's not like you're getting a refurbished part. It's still going to be brand new. Sometimes they have to make modifications to it, and they've got a defect or something that needs to be fixed.
Pat, microphone.
It's a metal flange, so they'll be basically, that stays the same. They'll renew everything else inside. I don't know what caused the issue. It was identified. We just told the provider that it wasn't working, fix it. And the fix was, after they tried several things over a period of a week or two, that has to come out. A temporary flow meter went in, and that one's getting sent back to be refurbished.
I have one more statement that I'd like to share with the board regarding the water treatment plant. Seth and I spoke last week. I went to the water treatment plant last Wednesday morning, and I was upset to find just Pat and the SCADA contractor. So I spoke with Seth, and I let him know that Williams Brothers Constructions has until 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon to have the plant up and running and substantially complete. If they did not, I said I would be sending a letter to the Attorney General, which I drafted up, and Michael's going to review. So if the plan is not up and substantially complete tomorrow at 5 p.m., at 5:01, I'll be sending this letter to the Attorney General. If anyone has any concerns about that, please see me before you leave. Okay. Michael, do you have anything for us?
No, unless any of the board members or president have any questions for me.
Laura, do you have anything?
Yes, I'd just like to announce a reminder of Friday, the U.S. Census Bureau will be here in this, in the boardroom, providing assistance to interested parties for recruiting potential field representatives to help us conduct the special census. So they'll be here Friday from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m., and then again Monday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And they're asking if people can bring their laptops, and they'll help you apply directly online here. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. I think that ends that. So does anyone have any old or new business they would like to discuss? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Haig?
Yes.
Trustee Carey?
Yes.
Trustee Hirschbein?
Yes.
Trustee Tarnow?
Yes.
Trustee Romano?
Yes.
Trustee Hall?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Meeting is adjourned at 8:39 p.m.